Good.
Yeah. So hello everyone. I hope the slide is visible to you and I'm audible enough.
Yes?
Great. So
Yes.
welcome to today's session. And what we are doing here is between me and Ram, we are breaking up the session into two parts. So I'll be starting with the operational areas and Ram will pick up the programmatic and the ICT kind of areas. So that is how we thought that we will take up this session. And at any given moment of time, if you feel like asking anything, please feel free to interrupt me. Or as per your convenience, if you would like to put your questions at the end, we can take that as well. And if you feel like I'm wasting your time, please stop me there itself.
Mhm.
Great. So I'll start with the operational part. Uh, so let's talk about specifically finance. And if we look at we are in 2020, so we're looking at a 10-year journey and what we were 10 years ago and where we are right now. So as you all know, by the end of 2010, we were in the process of migrating from Scala. And I don't know how many of you are aware about Scala, but Scala used to be an FIS, a financial information system for the entire CARE International, specifically CARE USA and CARE USA country offices and the associated member partners at that time. So we were in the transition. CARE India experimented with PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft was hosted by CARE USA, and they were in the process of setting up uh, the shared service center in Manila. So at that time, we onboarded as an experiment. At the same time, parallelly, we also invested in a local software, which is typically called Tally. Tally is a very popular accounting software in India. So at that time, CARE India had a couple of entities. So CISSD was one entity, and as a country office of CARE USA, CARE Inc. was one entity, and then CARE India Trust. So we had quite a few of entities, and for these local entities, we were on the local FIS called Tally. And for CARE Inc., we moved to PeopleSoft, which was at that time called Pamodzi, if you remember. But over a period of time, we were with PeopleSoft for about 1 year or so, one fiscal year, one entire complete fiscal year, and then there were some problems, the problems relating specifically to reporting and all that stuff, and somehow our management at that time did not, find it prudent to continue with PeopleSoft at that time. So we converted totally into a locally hosted system. So Tally was locally hosted, and it still is to some extent. We are running 3 servers out of our on-premise data center at headquarters. And last year, CARE India moved back to PeopleSoft in partnership with CARE USA. So since last fiscal year, we are now running completely on PeopleSoft, including the reporting and all that stuff. So that is all about finance. We are still keeping a Tally because of our legal and regulatory requirements that we have to maintain those records for a fixed number of years. So we are still maintaining the servers, but those servers are administrative overhead on those services have now completely gone. So PeopleSoft is taken care of by CARE USA. The Manila Shared Service Center takes care of everything. Our administrative overhead is now completely gone. Talking about procurement function,
Uh,
again started.
before you, Abhi, before you go on, can you give some more information about PeopleSoft? Because if it's not, is that because a request of CARE USA, or is it intentionally you finally think that PeopleSoft is the best way to go, or is it because you still have a large portfolio with CARE USA?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, nearly 8 to 9 years of running a local FIS system, we were increasingly finding it difficult to comply with the different legal and audit requirements. And it was basically an accounting system which was not well integrated with other processes. So if we talk about procure to pay, the entire procure to pay life cycle, that was not there. There were things, but there were things in bits and pieces. And repeatedly, at least since last 3 4 years, repeatedly we were getting observations on our audits, both statutory audits and other audits which were conducted by donors. They were asking for a proper ERP to be established. So we have been looking for, since last 2-3 years, we looked at different ERP systems locally, and at the same time, things which are global. So we looked at Microsoft ecosystem, Microsoft Dynamics, and we also looked at homegrown ERP systems. We looked at some of the systems which are typically used by NGOs, but we found that very limiting. We had lots of sessions, lots of rounds of demos and discussions, and ultimately we zeroed it down to PeopleSoft. So PeopleSoft is basically, as you know, it's an Oracle owned entity, and Oracle provides all the backend support to Care USA. And we thought that our management thought that it would be good for us, so that at least the entire reporting part is rolled up back to the Care USA and Care International, especially for projects which are coming through a Care member partner like Care UK, Care France, or Care USA. And even for our local projects, it would be beneficial for us. So that is what the thought process was behind it. I hope I was able to answer
Yes,
some part of your question, if not all.
because that's always the question. All of the care members are eventually expected to be using PeopleSoft, and we're still on Sun system. So I don't have this background to compare, but I was just wondering because
we evaluated Sun as well, but during our evaluation of several such ERP systems, we found customization and these things are typically a bottleneck and a pain. Especially like India, when we in 2018, 2019, we were thinking of moving to an ERP system. We at the same time, Indian government started up GST. So there was a transition period, and customizing the software as per GST was typically a thing that we were looking for, and PeopleSoft made it easier for us because the entire maintenance, customization, and management lies with Care USA. So that administrative overhead and running after the vendors and agencies and these people, that overhead is now gone. So all we have to now do is coordinate with Manila and get the changes done. And the things have been settled up, and since last one fiscal year, things are running pretty smoothly now.
Okay, just one final question on this: is it expensive to use PeopleSoft?
It depends. I mean, the correct answer would be it depends. So when we were evaluating things like some of the top line ERP systems like Microsoft Dynamics, and Microsoft has a bouquet of such ERP systems, we found that the cost of owning and running our own ERP system entails things like capex. So there is a capital upfront expenditure wherein we would invest in servers, and one server is not enough. Typically, the database itself has to be redundant. So there will be a lot of failover, clustering needs to be there. So we were looking at around 4 to 5 servers, and then keep those servers up and running is another administrative overhead, patches, security, updates, upgrades. And again, the maintenance cost has to be given to the vendor. So in totality, if we look at this capex plus opex and only opex kind of thing, things come to about nearly the same. So there's not big a difference.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody else have questions on this? Okay, thank you. Then maybe you can proceed. Thank you.
Great. So coming to procurement, as I told you about the procure to pay cycle, procurement has always been a pain point for us in Care India. So when we were using Scala 10 years ago, we tried to build in some purchase requisition and PO things in Scala, but again the workflow was not there. And then for quite some years, we were working manually. It was totally a manual process. Somewhere in 2013, 2014, we shifted to Tally, which is a local system which was also being used by finance. So we partnered with a local agency. We did heavy customizations on that Tally system to enable at least the key procurement lifecycle stages. So purchase requisitions are still out of it, but once a purchase requisition is received in procurement, these are manually punched into the Tally system. Then the Rest of the things like RFQ and PU and GRN, they were being punched into the tally system. Basically, it is kind of a automated system, quasi manual kind of thing. But again, because of the audit observation, we are also looking, we have been looking, and we are looking to move procurement also to PeopleSoft. So hopefully by the next fiscal year, that is 2021, we'll be moving procurement also to PeopleSoft. And the advantage you would get is the entire procure to pay cycle, including asset management, will be in a one single streamlined workflow. So that is where we sit at right now. And talking about the next big support function, that is HR. Even when we tried PeopleSoft back in 2011, we did not take up the HR module because that was very, very limited in PeopleSoft. We went ahead with the local application, which is a very, very popular application, which is called Adrenaline, which is done by a company called Polaris. We worked with that software, and then ultimately HR is a function and the processes are so fluid and they demand such a lot of customization at a granular level that we were finding it very difficult to coordinate with the agency to get those bits and pieces done every time. So somewhere in 2011, 2012, we shifted to an homegrown in-house created application. Again, nearly the same thing happened with us. Because of the shrinking budgets and shrinking teams, we were left behind with just one developer in-house, and we were finding it very, very difficult to cope up with the the kind of changing demands of HR function. So somewhere in 2013, 2014, we again outsourced the entire system to a local agency, and that system is called Prompt HR. This is a software application. It has a web component, web application component, and a small mobile application component as well. And it is totally outsourced. So we are not hosting the servers on premise. The servers are in the cloud. The hosting, management, maintenance, everything is the headache of that particular agency. So it's kind of a locally outsourced system. Still, we are not yet evaluating PeopleSoft for HR, again, because of the same underlying reasons, the limited functionality and the ever-changing scenarios, changes in policies, changes in procedures, processes, and the granular customization required for each and every module, even for performance management system and all that stuff. So that is all about support functions. If there are questions, I can pause here, otherwise I can move.
Yes, I have a general question, and I guess that, it seems that you're using various software applications with all the key functions of the management side. How does that change? Maybe if you look back, look at us where we are, we're still doing so many of these things manually. Do you think that this change has made people's lives much easier, maybe, very clear data, handling of, inventory, and has it improved very significantly from the use of IT, and you see it even progressing more in the future?
Absolutely, absolutely. Things have definitely improved, and if we look back, even if we look back 10 years from now, things have definitely improved. Those problems associated with manual processes, signatures, and the workflows especially is now streamlined. It is such a comfort. It doesn't matter whether people are traveling or whether they are on leave. There is a well-defined workflow which functions. Not only that, there is predefined escalation. So for example, if an invoice or a voucher is not approved on time, automatically a reminder and an escalation goes out. So things have definitely improved on the workflow side, and at the same time from the reporting side. So earlier the things were really a mess. Every time an audit happens, happens around the year. Mm-hmm. One audit ends and the other starts. So chasing after those paper trails it used to be a pain, which is now that reporting is now much improved in PeopleSoft especially. So that has totally made our life easy, especially the finance and procurement people. And we are hopeful that procurement people realize that when they move to PeopleSoft next year, because the entire workflow from pay to procure to pay is going to be automated that way. And same with HR.
Yeah. And does that mean that your teams have changed to more IT oriented teams from the people? I mean, people who with us for the last 15 years have no IT backgrounds. How did you go through that transformation, or did you have to?
That is interesting. See, we have a mix of people. So typically, older people who have been in and around with care for a long time, they already have experience of using Scala. Tally, for example, Tally is a very popular software in India. So if any finance person is joining the team, they already know how to use Tally. Tally is pervasive from a small shop to SMB segment. Everybody uses Tally. So people are, well versed with that. So the only gap is people who have been around for 5 years or something like that. People who have been around for 10, 15 years, they know the virtue and the value of an IT-based system. People who are just joining, people who are new freshers, they are of the new age. They are very well, tech savvy, and they know how to do things. But again, for people who are in the 5 to 10 years kind of range, where if you see these timeline, that was the time period when we were mostly on manual and locally developed systems. So we invested a lot in training, individual trainings and group trainings as well. But more or less, things were pretty smooth for us.
Okay, but my friends from Sri Lanka and Indonesia, do you have any discussion now? And also my colleagues from Thailand. Yeah, please.
No, just a quick one. Basically, we don't actually use the PeopleSoft or any other software here, but we use for our finance, especially for the finance, we use QuickBooks. But we are in a way of upgrading our software to an Oracle-based software. It's called NetSuite. So what we're trying to do is from next financial year, which is starting from April next year. So we want to use our new financial software that include all the finance, procurement, and some of the HR functions as well. So basically, we are going now. Basically, the procurement HR, we do it a lot of the manual stuff. But finance, we use QuickBooks. But moving forward, we're going to use the new software. But PeopleSoft, I think they are mainly used by the care family. And I heard about Tally, but I have not heard about Scala. But for the finance, but so that's the update from Chrysalis in Colombo side, how we use our software.
Yes, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
Indonesia?
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Prombon. Yeah, in Indonesia, we just recently been utilizing the Microsoft Business Dynamics. So the first 3 modules consist of finance and accounting, procurement, and grants and program database. So we're still struggling in the process of integrating some of the, especially from the program data, and then how the budget, for example, is connecting to the finance and the procurement. Basically, what we have implemented in the past 3 months is finance and procurement modules. So the program, I think it needs one step further to not to develop, but to enhance the skill of the users to for the data entry, for example, and then complete the information into the database. So and in regards to the HR modules, we just recently developed the modules, but I think the implementation will be taking place in the first quarter of 2021 next year. So I'm keen to learn from the India office. I think I mean, for example, regarding the integration of the data from the procurement and finance, as well as for the program, for example.
Mhm. So
Yeah, I think that's the updates from the Indonesia.
yes. Okay. Thailand. อาจารย์นวพร or อาจารย์พิวา any because you are helping Rakai to kind of start up the whole thing.
Okay, have one question for Care India. For the PeopleSoft, is it a license based? I mean, do you have to pay for per license per year? Is that correct? Or is it a one-time payment and then you pay the maintenance fee the year after?
You're right. This is an OPEX operational expenditure, so it is license based depending on the number of users. So every year
Okay.
charge back.
Is this a flat rate license? Because I heard in some software, it depends on how much you use the functions or the modules. If you use more modules, then they charge you more. Is Oracle a flat license subscription fee?
Okay, we don't have to deal with Oracle. We only have to deal with Care USA.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of intra-company, intra-company charging, and they charge for
Intercompany
number of
charging.
users that we are using, and that they are little flexible on that. So if we tell them that we have 100 users who will be using the system, and if we end up using 150 users, they don't mind.
Oh, okay. All right. Great.
Okay, so I guess you can continue, Abby.
Okay, great. So I'll be moving a little fast for the rest of the things. So talking about support functions, we talked about finance, procurement, HR, and now this slide is dedicated to resource mobilization functions, typically direct fundraising, which is individual fundraising. 10 years ago, we were manual, and then somewhere down the line in late 2010s, we invested in a locally hosted system, which is typically called DMSI. This DMSI system is very popular amongst NGOs, typically in India. So we, as a natural course of progression, we invested in that system. It is still in use, but since 2020, actually 2019, we started looking at alternatives, and we are now moving to Salesforce. So as of November, the direct fundraising, individual fundraising, as we call it, they are now completely on Salesforce. But DMSI is running parallelly. So there's some transactions which the team find it easier to use DMSI. So as of now, we are running it parallelly. We'll run it parallelly for around a year or so, and then we will gradually phase out DMSI when we will completely move to Salesforce. But as of now, direct fundraising, individual fundraising, it is completely on Salesforce. The corporate fundraising, they have been running manually. So manually means segregated and disparate and scattered Excel sheets and all that stuff. They are also moving. So as by the end of this year, by the end of calendar year 2020, in December itself, they will be live on Salesforce. Currently, they are in the process of migrating their data into Salesforce. Institutional fundraising will move to Salesforce in next calendar year. So once corporate is done, we will shift our focus to institutional. These people, resource mobilization functions, have traditionally been running manually. So now we are moving everything down to Salesforce. The reason behind going with Salesforce was being a charity, Salesforce provides us at least 10 charity licenses. So the entire system, the entire software, the entire application ecosystem is free for us up to 10 licenses. Beyond that, we will have to purchase licenses, which We are currently not sure because the number of the team size is typically small, and when we want to give visibility to management, senior management people, we will pick up read-only licenses, which are typically cheaper. So
Mhm.
it is about resource mobilization. Okay, can I move ahead?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and now talking about the rest of the things, talking about the glue which glues the entire organization together, it is about collaboration, and we are on Office 365. Care India was the first CMP in Care to move to cloud in 2013. So this is how we have progressed, and we are completely on Microsoft Office 365 platform and ecosystem. And there are lots of services, and there are lots of features, and there are lots of workloads which are there on Office 365. But I will typically highlight these three workloads which are key to collaboration. So when you're talking about collaboration between teams, between people, these are the three workloads we promote within Care India heavily. One is OneDrive, where we ask users to use OneDrive not only as a backup system, but also a collaboration feature. But typically, for all individual needs, it is OneDrive. For all teamwork related needs, it is Microsoft Teams. And for their organization-wide collaboration, it is SharePoint. So we have invested heavily, especially in SharePoint. And if you notice, our SharePoint environment is called Care Insight. You might have heard about Care Shares, which was launched a couple of months ago by Care International. This is architecturally on the same principles as that of Care Insight. We started Care Insight somewhere in 2014, 2015, and every project, every team, every function, they are onboarded on Care Insight. So all the documents, all the news, and all the knowledge products, they are currently on this SharePoint system. It is a single central online document repository for entire Care India. It is the key to collaboration between projects and between teams and between individuals. It is driven by taxonomy and metadata. We highly discourage usage of folders. We promote heavily taxonomy and metadata to classify, organize information online. I'm taking a brief pause to see if there are any questions coming in. Otherwise, I'll just move forward.
No, it's very impressive. That's why we're all following you.
And exactly. And we recommend all our users, we promote all our users to use the Office 365 ecosystem. We discourage them to use third-party services because of several reasons. One important reason is we are already paying for it. So why not use the services which are available to us rather than going to a third-party system? Other reasons being security. Security is very, very important. And that is what we highlight very often to our users, not to use the third-party services, as the last column of this table shows. I'll just give you an example. For this particular today's meeting, I think a doodle poll was created. We discourage our users to use doodle poll for the reason, as you can see on the screen, on the left-hand side is the doodle, on the right-hand side is FindTime, which is Microsoft product and part of Office 365 ecosystem. It is ad-free. It is integrated into Outlook. So you can see it is right there in the Outlook ribbon. You just have to click it. It automatically shows you the availability so that it is easier for you to schedule times and ask people to poll for it. The polling happens from inside Outlook, and those people who are not on Office 365, it takes you to the web portal, but that web portal is unlike Doodle. There are no ads. There is nothing. It is clean, pure business over there. Plus security, the data is not being shared on a third-party system elsewhere. So these are the reasons that we typically ask our users, because we have invested heavily in it, because it is secured, the authentication of employees is already built in, it is auditable, the data controls are built in, nothing leaves the ecosystem. So that is why we feel very, very secure. There is typically very less chances of data breach anywhere. That is why we discourage people from using third-party consumer services, because most of the comparable things are already there in the Office 365 ecosystem. Okay, again, a brief pause. I take a breath and wait for a question. Okay. We have invested in threat protection. Specifically, it is a three-tier threat protection. You are all aware of, UTMs, Unified Threat Management Systems, which are like firewalls and, high-end routers, which are installed on-premise. So that is one tier, which is at a gateway layer. But what I'm talking to you about today is the other two tiers, which is the online threats, which are coming from an online environment, where we have invested in Office 365 ATP, as it is called, Advanced Threat Protection. It provides security against attachments. It doesn't matter whether an attachment is attached to an email or it is lying a document lying on SharePoint or OneDrive or Teams. It gives us an option to track that, to block the safe attachments, to silently replace it. So there is a plethora of options which are available to us as an IT administrator. All the links are wrapped inside protection.outlook.com, which is a Microsoft dedicated service. So this is something which you already know. So all the links that we share with each other, if you are on the global shared tenancy, you might have noticed that the links are wrapped inside the protection.outlook.com Microsoft service. So the anti-phishing is there, spoofing protection is there, and very, very rich reporting and telemetry is there. So that is on the online side. And the third tier is where we are talking about the endpoint, the device which the user uses. This is the endpoint. So we have invested in Sophos Endpoint Threat Protection, which works at several levels. It integrates with the Windows inbuilt security, which is Windows Defender. So if we open up control panel, it is right there. It provides us ransomware protection. It provides us, all the advanced features of threat protection. So we are protected at three tiers: online, gateway, and endpoint. Again, I'll pause briefly, and if there are no questions, I will move
Well,
forward.
maybe one question. Do you have a large IT team in Kirinda?
Typically, when it comes to operations side, we are centrally managed, and we are just a two-people team, and the third person recently joined a couple of months ago. So in total, we are a three-people team who is managing the operations side. But our program, which is our biggest program, they have definitely a larger team. Again, the operations side, for their local requirements, they have a three-member team, and on the ICT side, they have a large team. So which Ram manages, that is on the ICT side. But for on the operations side, we are have a very, very limited team.
Okay, thank you.
Again, this is just an example. There are some in-house software applications that we have created. Like for example, portal services is one example where we for example, we had a problem of people not being able to change passwords easily, especially remote field-based users who are disconnected from the central network. So we created an in-house application to help them do a self-service password change. This application also gives them an advanced warning where their passwords are going to expire. It is integrated with the security so that the commonly used bad passwords are filtered out, and it shows a alert to the user. There are quick links available. Information security related self-training videos are hosted on this application, and currently we are in the process of automating all our IT related processes like account creation and account deletion process or license assigning process. These are ITIL based processes, and currently they are in automation, and that is going to be part of this application. So this is one example of where not only we invest in outsourced services, we also spend time, effort, and energy in creating something which is not readily available off the shelf. So before I pass on over to Ram to talk more about deep programmatic initiatives and ICT initiatives, a brief overview about how this entire operations side work for projects as well. So when we're talking about projects, we have lots of projects, small projects, big projects, different donors, and the projects are very, very different. Sometimes they have entirely different M&D framework or log frame. They have different indicators and which they want to track. the different kinds of output and outcome monitoring happens. So it's very difficult to pick up one system which serves for all. There's no one ring to rule them all. Although we are trying, we are still working out, and as Ram will explain you, we are working out different things where we can find out a magical ring which will rule all these projects. But as of now, what we try to do is whenever project needs an MIS system specifically for quick data collections where they cannot wait for, creation of a custom software or introduction of a ready-made software, off-the-shelf software. So for that, we typically use ODK, Open Data Kit based apps, which provide mobile-based data collection, web-based data analytics. They're typically free, depending on the feature set. So there are teams, like for example, there are teams in our Bihar project which use ODK native, which doesn't cost much, but there is a lot of effort which goes into it. So if there is a development team, they typically try and use ODK native. For smaller projects where we do not have a development team, they use apps like ONA and Kobo Toolbox. Kobo Toolbox is generally used for medium-sized projects where the data set is typically larger, because it allows for 10,000 submissions per month. There are teams and projects which use Survey CTO. Survey CTO is again built on ODK. It is ODK-based system for quick data collection. But what it also allows is geotagging of data submission. It allows usage of media. For example, if a focused interview has to be conducted with the community, that entire audio recording can be attached to the data collection form and submitted. So typically, when we are talking about quick data collection in projects, small little MISs, ODK is where we go to. For projects which have very, very typical requirements, we go for custom development or outsource the things. Typically in Bihar, they have a large development team, big development team. So they do a lot of work in-house, as Ram will explain. And lastly, before I hand it over to Ram, when I'm talking about data collection, we also try and do some kind of innovation. Like for example, this is an example where in a project, we wanted to collect lots and lots of data around different endpoints. But the community data collection was a chore because we had limited personnel, and the community was not very literate, and infrastructure was not available to implement a state-of-the-art ICT system using sensors and all of that. So what we did was we pre-designed OMR sheets, optical mark recognition. So the community members could, as you can see in the photographs, could simply mark, so they don't have to write. It becomes faster, and an app, Android-based app, simply scans these sheets, and the data collection happens automatically thereafter. So this is an example where we try to bundle in some kinds of low-tech or high-tech innovations along with data collection, but primarily that is where the operations side ends. Now, what I'll do is I'll pass the buck, hand over it to Ram, who will take us into more details into programmatic and ICT-based innovations for project management and typically for innovations there in the field. So Ram, over to you.
Thanks,